All right, so get ready because today we're taking a deep dive into the filmography of Álex de la Iglesia.
Oh, yeah. One of the most interesting and unique voices in Spanish cinema, I'd say.
And I think one of the things that we've heard from you guys listening
Yeah.
is this fascination with his ability to blend these dark comedies
Yeah.
with horror.
Right.
And so we really want to unpack that a little bit today and talk about what makes his film so unique.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because it's not just a blending of genres with him.
Yeah.
It's that he uses these genres to really dissect like the absurdities of human behavior
Right.
and societal norms. It's like he's holding up a funhouse mirror to the world and reflecting our darkest impulses back at us, but making us laugh along the way.
Right. Yeah, he makes it palatable somehow.
Right.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning with his debut film, Mutant Action from 1993.
Okay.
I've heard it described as over-the-top, grotesque, but also hilarious.
All of those things, yes. Mutant Action is pure de la Iglesia from the get-go. You know, imagine a dystopian future where beauty standards are ruthlessly enforced.
Oh, wow.
And a group of rebels with unique mutations fight back against this oppressive system. So it's a satire. It's an action film. It's got plenty of dark humor sprinkled throughout.
So it sounds like he kind of came out of the gate fully formed in a way.
Very much so, yeah.
And this is interesting, too, because this film was produced by Pedro Almodóvar,
Yes,
which is a pretty big name in Spanish cinema.
absolutely. One of the giants of Spanish cinema.
So that must have been a huge boost for a first-time director.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, to have that support from such an established and respected figure like Almodóvar speaks volumes about the potential that he saw in De La Iglesia's talent.
Yeah, it seems like he recognized early on that there was something special there.
Oh, absolutely. And even in this early film, you see his signature style emerging, you know, this fearless blend of absurdity and social commentary wrapped up in a very visually striking package.
And that visual style is really something else. We'll definitely have to touch on that more.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so then we get to The Day of the Beast in 1995.
Okay.
And this really kind of put him on the map, I think, internationally.
Yeah, I think this is probably the film that most people associate with him when they think of Álex de la Iglesia.
And it seems to be like a real quintessential example of his ability to blend horror and comedy.
For sure. And The Day of the Beast is so brilliant because it takes something as sacred as the birth of the Antichrist and turns it into this hilarious buddy comedy. You've got a priest teaming up with a heavy metal fan and a TV psychic
What?
to try and prevent the apocalypse. And it's as bizarre as it sounds.
Yeah.
But he masterfully uses religious imagery and expectations for comedic effect.
It seems like he's playing with fire a little bit there, like using these potentially offensive topics for laughs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that's part of his appeal. He doesn't shy away from controversial subjects. You know, he seems to almost enjoy poking fun at the things that we hold sacred, forcing us to confront our own maybe hypocrisies or our own anxieties. But he does it with a wink and a nod, you know, never taking himself too seriously.
So there's like an ironic distance there, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's that playfulness that keeps it from being too offensive or preachy.
Yeah. Now, of course, this film went on to win several Goya Awards,
Yes.
which is Spain's equivalent of the Oscars, I guess.
Exactly.
So did that success influence his later work, do you think?
Oh, I think so for sure. The Day of the Beast really solidified his reputation as a filmmaker who could push boundaries, you know, find humor in the darkest of places. And I think you see that confidence and that willingness to experiment even more so in his subsequent films.
Yeah, and you can kind of feel that energy carrying through the rest of his work.
Definitely. Yeah, it's like he found his voice and he's running with it.
So speaking of experimenting, let's talk about Commonwealth from 2000.
Okay.
This one's a black comedy, right?
Exactly. Commonwealth centers around a woman who finds hidden treasure in her apartment building, but instead of this being a joyous occasion, it unleashes this wave of greed and chaos among the residents.
Oh.
So it's got this kind of Hitchcocky and thriller vibe mixed with this almost slapstick humor, and it's just this brilliant critique of consumerism and this disintegration of community.
So still dark, still comedic, but a little bit more grounded in reality than fighting the Antichrist.
Yeah, a bit more relatable maybe for some viewers, but it's still very much a De La Iglesia film.
Right.
He takes this seemingly ordinary situation, and through this series of escalating events, he reveals the absurdity that's lurking beneath the surface of everyday life.
Yeah, and he seems to have a knack for taking these ordinary situations and twisting them into something so unexpected.
Absolutely. He loves to explore that tipping point,
Yeah.
where something that seems so normal suddenly becomes absurd and terrifying.
Yeah.
And he often uses black humor as a way for his characters and for us as viewers to kind of cope with the unsettling truths that he reveals.
Okay, so then we have Crimen Perfecto from 2004.
Yes.
I've heard this one described as a dark comedy about a salesman who accidentally murders someone.
That's the one. It's another example of De La Iglesia taking this really mundane setting, this time a department store,
Okay.
and injecting it with this chaotic energy. And this time he's really focusing on the lengths that people will go to cover up their mistakes and just these ridiculous situations that can arise from desperation.
It seems like a recurring theme with him, this whole exploring ordinary situations spiraling out of control.
Absolutely. He's fascinated by that moment when everything goes off the rails.
And it's almost like he's saying that beneath the surface of our everyday lives, there's this potential for chaos and absurdity.
Right. And that maybe we're not as control as we like to think we are.
Okay, so we've got dystopian futures, religious satire, darkly comedic thrillers set in everyday life. Where does he go from here?
Well, buckle up because things are about to get even more intense with The Last Circus.
All right, so we're going to have to wait for part 2 to hear about that one, but I'm intrigued.
You should be. So, The Last Circus, yeah, this one's a bit of a departure from his earlier films.
Yeah, I've heard this one's like really dark.
It is. It's definitely more intense, more dramatic. It's got this real emotional weight to it.
So not just a straight up horror comedy.
Not quite. It's visually stunning, though, and the story's really powerful.
So what's it about?
It takes place in Spain during the Francoist era, and it's about this love triangle between two clowns.
Okay.
One's like the sad clown, and the other's, well, deeply disturbed, to say the least.
It's an interesting choice, clowns.
Yeah, and they're both in love with the same woman, so you can imagine how that plays out.
Yeah, not, well, I'm guessing.
Not well at all. It's a recipe for disaster, really, and De La Iglesia uses these familiar figures, these clowns often associated with laughter and joy, right?
Right.
And he subverts that, completely revealing the darkness and the violence that can hide beneath the surface.
That's kind of a recurring theme with him, isn't it? Like taking something familiar and twisting it into something unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. He's a master of subversion. He likes to play with our expectations and then turn them upside down.
So this film, it's not just about the clowns, though, right? There's more to it than that.
Oh, yeah. It explores these really complex themes: love, obsession, revenge, the scars left by political repression. It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, that sounds heavy, and I've read that the violence in this one is pretty brutal.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but it's not gratuitous.
Okay.
It serves a purpose. It reflects the brutality of the time period and the internal struggles of these characters, their psychological torment.
So he's not shying away from the darkness.
Not at all. He's embracing it.
Huh.
He wants us to confront the ugliness of human nature head on.
And using the backdrop of this really turbulent time in Spanish history.
Right, exactly. The Franco regime casts a long shadow over the film, and you can feel that weight in every scene.
So it's not just about the laughs anymore. There's a deeper message here.
Oh, definitely. There's this philosophical exploration of good and evil, the impact of political upheaval on individual lives, how trauma can manifest in destructive ways.
And this is where his background in philosophy comes into play, I guess.
For sure, yeah. You can really see his intellectual curiosity at work here. He's wrestling with some big questions about the human condition.
Okay, so we've seen him tackle dystopian satire, religious comedy, historical drama, with horror elements.
It's quite the range, right?
Yeah, it really is. And he manages to make each film so distinct while still maintaining that signature De La Iglesia style.
Exactly. You always know you're watching a De La Iglesia film, even if the genre is different.
So where does he go next after this deep dive into darkness and drama?
Well, he lightens things up a bit with Witching and Bitching in 2013.
Oh, yeah, the one with the witches.
That's the one.
Tell me it's as wild as it sounds.
Oh, it is. It's completely bonkers. Imagine a group of criminals who are trying to escape the police.
Okay.
And they stumble into this coven of witches in the mountains of France.
Of course they do. It's a De La Iglesia film.
Right, exactly. So it's this crazy mix of slapstick, comedy, supernatural, horror, heist, movie tropes, all wrapped up in his signature visual flair.
Sounds like a lot going on.
Oh, there's a lot going on, but it all works somehow. He's got this amazing ability to juggle all these different elements and create something that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
So, ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, another recurring theme.
He loves to throw these relatable characters into these absurd, often terrifying
Now
situations.
see how they react?
Exactly, and it's in those heightened scenarios that their true natures are revealed, often with hilarious and horrifying results.
But even with the witches and the slapstick, there's still that deeper layer of social commentary, isn't
Which,
there?
oh, for sure. And witching and bitching, he's poking fun at toxic masculinity, economic anxieties, traditional family structures, you name it.
Wow, he covers a lot of ground.
He does, but he does it all with this lighthearted, almost carnivalesque energy, so it never feels heavy-handed.
It's a perfect blend of entertainment and social satire.
Yeah, he's mastered that balance.
So we've got witches, slapstick, social satire. And he's still not done experimenting, is he?
Not even close. In 2017, he comes out with The Bar.
Okay.
This time he ditches the expansive landscapes of witching and bitching and goes for this claustrophobic thriller set entirely within this small, ordinary bar in Madrid.
Oh, wow, that's a change of pace.
It is. It's a really intense film about this group of strangers who get trapped inside this bar after witnessing a shooting outside.
So they're stuck.
Yeah, completely cut off from the outside world. And as you can imagine, fear and paranoia start to escalate.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
They start to turn on each other. They're forced to confront their own prejudices, their own fears. It's a real pressure cooker situation.
So back to that classic De La Iglesia setup. Ordinary people in an extraordinary situation.
Exactly. But this time, the focus is on the psychological terror of confinement and the breakdown of social order.
And the whole thing takes place in one location.
Yep, just this one little bar, and he creates this incredible sense of dread and suspense using minimal set. It's really all about the performances and the dialogue and the slow buildup of tension.
So from all of these different films, what would you say is De La Iglesia's most lasting impact on cinema?
That's a tough one. But I think it's his willingness to push boundaries, to combine genres in unexpected ways,
Yeah.
to never shy away from the dark and absurd aspects of the human condition.
He really makes us laugh at the things that scare us the most.
That's his gift. He
Yeah.
finds the humor in the darkness, and that's what makes his films so compelling and unforgettable.
And I think that's a great segue into talking about his legacy and his overall impact on filmmaking, both in Spain and internationally.
Okay, so we've really gone through a lot of his filmography from the early days with Mutant Action to the more recent The Bar.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. So when you think about his work overall, what would you say is like his most enduring contribution to cinema?
I think it's that really rare ability he has to fuse dark humor and horror, and to do it in a way that also provides this really insightful social commentary.
Yeah, it's not just shock value. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
He's not just trying to be provocative for the sake of it.
Yeah.
He's using those elements to make us think, to question the world around us.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to push boundaries.
Not at all. He makes us laugh at things that would normally make us uncomfortable. And in doing so, he forces us to confront those darker aspects of ourselves and of our society.
Like he's saying, hey, this is the stuff we usually try to avoid talking about.
Right, exactly.
But let's look at it. Let's shine a light on it and maybe even find some humor in it.
And I think that's what makes his films so powerful, because they're not just entertaining, they're also making us think critically about the world.
Yeah, and he does it with such a unique visual style, too.
No, absolutely. His films are visually stunning. He's a master of creating these really memorable images and using those images to tell a story.
I think that's what I appreciate most about his work, is this ability to balance these seemingly contradictory elements.
Yeah.
It's dark, it's disturbing, it can be really violent,
Uh-huh.
but it's also hilarious. You're laughing one minute and then you're cringing the next.
And that's the magic of De La Iglesia, right? He creates this roller coaster ride of emotions. He keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
You never know what's coming next.
And that unpredictability is part of the fun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's what keeps you engaged, and it's what makes his films so rewatchable, because you're always discovering something new.
And you can definitely see his influence in a lot of the newer filmmakers coming out of Spain.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's paved the way for a whole new generation of Spanish cinema that's really gaining international recognition for its unique blend of genres and its willingness to experiment.
So if someone's listening to this and they're intrigued by De La Iglesia, but they've never seen any of his films,
Yeah.
where would you recommend they start?
I'd say dive in with whatever premise grabs you.
Yeah.
Each film offers something different, but they all share that signature De La Iglesia style, so
Yeah.
you're in for a wild ride no matter which one you choose.
And prepare to be surprised, challenged, and thoroughly entertained. That's a good way to put it. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a filmmaker who's not afraid to push boundaries,
Uh,
who can make you laugh and think in equal measure, then Álex de la Iglesia is definitely worth exploring.
for sure, he's a true visionary, and his films are a reminder that even in the darkest corners of human experience, there's always room for humor, for satire, for a little bit of the absurd.
And with that, we conclude our deep dive into the world of Álex de la Iglesia. Hopefully you've learned a little something today about his unique style and his lasting impact on cinema. So until next time, happy watching.